Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at the high-grade Psycho Gundam Mark II, one of the biggest freestanding high-grade Gundams of them all, and there is probably only 3 around this big. That of course is the original high-grade Psycho Gundam from 20 years ago, the high-grade Destroy Gundam, which is from last year, and this one right here. It is absolutely massive. Now, we'll mention if you do want to see the full build of this, that was done in a separate video, as well as seeing what this kit looks like out of box, just straight built. Because in this review, I did do a little bit more for it, so it does look a little bit different to what it will look like out of the box. Not a whole lot, just a little bit of effort. So once again, if you want to see it straight built, and the build, check out that other video. And if you do want one of your own, this video right here would not have been possible without those absolutely awesome people over at Hobby Link Japan, and the link is down there in the description. Now let's check out those aesthetics. So jumping on into the aesthetics, and this is how much of this Gundam I can actually fit in frame when it's actually at arm's length. That's how big it is. For example, there is your average sized high grade Gundam. So this thing is absolutely massive. And you might notice, well, it looks a little bit different than it did in the build video, especially because there's a couple of decals here and there. So let's wind back the clock a little bit. So basically, once I got this kit built in that other video up, what I did was I disassembled it once again. Now, if you're ever disassembling this, remember that it does have a lot of keyhole style joints, which means you can't just pull off the arms, head, and legs. They actually have to be moved into a certain position before they do slide off, which is fantastic for the actual transformation. I panel lined this kit in the usual way I do, using the pour style flow kind of panel liners, the ones that you just touch into the lines and they fill in the lines for you, and you just take away the little bit of a mark that's left from the marker. Otherwise, super simple, super fast. Next up, I did want to add some decals onto this, because kits always look a lot better when there is some decals involved. Now, this kit doesn't come with any kind of stickers, any kind of decals at all, so just reached into my own collection to see if I could find something that would fit with it. What I used as a basis for the couple of decals I threw on is the fixed figuration version of this particular mobile armor. That, of course, was designed by Katoki, so that means he would have painstakingly decided on how the decals would look, so who am I to argue with that? Then I basically had to get some kind of decals that did kind of match with the theme somewhat. Luckily enough, I did end up, for whatever reason, getting 2 sets of Katoki decals inside of the Master Grade Thunderbolt Gundam, the full armor Thunderbolt Gundam. So that does mean I did have a whole spare sheet of these. These do match up quite well thematically with this. We've got the EFSF logos and all of that sort of jazz, caution marks in white, which would work out very, very nicely, like the fixed figuration. So I popped on a whole bunch of those. Not too many, just mainly in the kind of visual zone around the face and shoulders. And finally, I did hit it with a matte top coat. And in case you're wondering what one I did use, it's the one I use most of the time. It was this right here, the Mr. Hobby top coat in flat matte. One of these would do you probably 2 kits only, I would say. And this did cost me how much? Oh, there's no price on the actual thing itself, but they're pricey enough. But it does have such a beautiful effect, and this is looking absolutely mesmerizing. Let's take a closer look. So when it does come to the overall look of the Psycho Gundam Mark II, this one is definitely an eye-catcher. Compared to the regular old Psycho Gundam, which is in a cool black, this has gone all out when it comes to the color scheme, and it's very Zeta through and through. Primarily in a purple, with a little kind of darker bluish purple, yellow for highlights on those beam cannons, not verniers. Thank you. And a whole bunch of red and yellow detail all around the place. Now, there's not a single sticker on this kit besides the black circles inside of the Mega Beam Cannons, and there is one on the eyes as well, but that is optional because the eyes are color separated underneath. Overall, it's big, it's imposing, the color scheme is unique, and it has that really angular face that kind of has a more Zeta Gundam look to it than the standard RX-78-2 Gundam look we had on the regular Psycho Gundam. Overall, absolute massive beauty of a high grade. But yeah, speaking about the main thing that really comes into it with aesthetics with this particular kit right here, it's the size. This is absolutely massive. For example, if I just slide on in the RX-78-2 right here, it is tiny, or should I say looks tiny, and there is the high grade Zeta Gundam. So this is one absolute monster of a kit. Now, if I just slide in another couple of scale kits, there is a master grade beside it, so it is huge. And finally getting a perfect grade being the perfect grade unleashed in there beside it. So as you can see, it's almost the same size as a perfect grade kit. It's that big. So as for sliding in some other larger 1/44 scale kits, there is the real grade Sazabi, again only about up to its crotch. The real grade Nightingale, which is a huge kit, mainly out and to the back, is still relatively dwarfed. Bringing in another couple of large kits, there is the Typhoeus Gundam Chimera, a high grade that shares its exact arm, so this is where we saw the Mark II's arms before even on the Mark II, and there it is side by side with the Penelope, an absolutely huge high grade kit, but again, well, I guess its mass is definitely approaching something similar to the Mark II. These are some big kits. Lastly then, moving it over a little bit to get the last high-grade big boy to come out, which was the high-grade Destroy Gundam, and there it is side by side with the Mark II. So as you can see, the actual body is bigger than the Mark II, the overall kit is bigger with the Destroy Gundam, and there's definitely a whole lot more detail and love by Bandai put into the Mark II. For example, there's stickers on the back of the arms. This essentially has no stickers besides the little black recessed ones. And speaking of which, so yeah, when it comes to the color separation on this kit right here, it's essentially perfect besides the black sections inside of all those beam cannons. So all of those, they have a tiny little black sticker inside of them, which you would have seen in the build video. It looked a little bit like this. They just stick in like so, just a black circle in all of them. Can be a bit tedious to actually apply these while building, but they're simple to pop in. And they are essentially invisible once popped in there. But as you can see on this sheet right here, there is a whole ton of them to attach. The ones up here, those are the eye stickers. Now these are 100% optional because the eyes are color separated underneath. So that means these are 100% optional. I just popped them on because they tend to catch the light a little better in videos than the actual plastic parts, depending on kind of the angle of them really. These ones aren't really catching the light as much as some eyes do. I think they're kind of angled upwards somewhat, so they kind of, you know, not as effective as some. Those ones right there, right in the center, those number 3, those are an odd one. Those are also an eye sticker, but they're for actually attaching just like on the bridge of its nose is probably the best way to put it. There's a tiny little bit of gray or purple plastic between the two eyes that you can barely even see that that's for sticking on. It didn't even bother. That's how unnoticeable it is. Besides that though, all the color separation you're seeing on this is right out of box. So those red details, the little yellow details all over the place, even that super tiny little one there, that is all color separation. If you remember back at the build or the review of the regular Psycho Gundam, that is the one from 20 years ago, a lot of the yellow aspects on that were stickers, which isn't very premium. The overall kit is definitely quite dated with a hollow interior. This kit is nothing like that at all. It's color separation everywhere. There's tons of fantastic layering all around here. All that red and yellow that's recessed in everywhere. Bandai did not cut any corners with that at all. That is all individual parts everywhere. Fantastically done. Even the verniers on the bottom of the feet are actually fully color separated, which is so impressive. So now jumping into the accessories, here's everything that comes with the high-grade Psycho Gundam Mark II, and there is a lot in here. We've got that big old shield, wires for using with the arms, 1 ton of beams. Speaking of a ton, we've got a whole bunch of bits in here as well, those bit reflectors, a whole alternate head which is for the detached damaged state. We've got not 1 but 3 stands, some for the bit reflectors, some for the actual Gundam itself, and finally we do have some spare V-fin parts in here. Now I will mention, the chance of needing those is really high. I managed to actually break one of my V-fin horn sections by accident. Now this was nothing to do with the panel liner, this was even before the panel liner got on there, so it's not like that kind of ate through it or damaged it or weakened it and then it broke. It actually broke when I was just moving the head around. So these are a bit delicate towards the head, so there are spares worth holding on to. Anyway, that's everything in the box, and there's a ton. Let's blast on through them. So first up in here, we've got the hands. So these are exactly the same as what we would have seen with the Typhoeus Gundam Chimera. So that is, they are ball jointed towards the hand itself. That's including the thumb right here. So nice posability. And we do have 1 joint on these fingers, so you can actually move them way into a kind of fist. Of course, the important poses can always be pulled off, and overall these work quite well. Very nice. Next up, the arms do have a wired Psychomu mode. In order to do this, you just pop off the forearms just like so. We've got an included wire in here with 2 ends like this. One end attaches onto the forearm perfectly like this, the other into the forearm just like so. And even though this is a very strong wire, it's not a strong enough wire to actually hold up the hand itself. However, we do have included stands in here, including the Witch from Mercury style stands. Now, I have these built up for the Reflector Bits, and just for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to break them down or to make them into a smaller stand, but the option to make this as small or as long as you want is inside of the box. Basically, any of these little joints, you can just make it that long if you want to. To attach this onto the stand, we've got a little bit of a sliding mechanism in the bottom of the forearm like so. You pop that open, attach it onto the stand, and that right there is what it looks like with the hands used in the wired Saikomu kind of a way. If that wasn't cool enough already, we do also have another little bit of a gimmick in here. If you pull the hand forward just like so, then slide it off to the side on a little bit of a hinge, you've got yourself a little bit of a beam emitter in the end. And this is fully color separated too, so even though this is hidden away 90% of the time, Bandai went all out. Throw one of those big beams in there and you've got yourself a giant wired Saikomu beam sword. That is absolutely awesome. And again, if that was not cool enough, the arm does not have to be actually disconnected to do this, so you can just pop it back on. Again, popping it back on is exactly the reverse of what we did to, well, take it off. And then when it's on, it looks like that. Again, cool options right out of the box, and nothing beats a giant beam effect. So if you're a fan of beams, there's a lot of beams inside of this box, as well as the 2 big ones we just saw. We also have a bunch of small ones too. That is 12 in total, so it seems like we've got 2 spares. Hopefully I'm not missing something this time like I did the last time. They all pop into the hands just like so, into all of the fingertips, and this is what it looks like with those attached. So if you want some over-the-top finger beam action, you've got it right here. So next up in here, when it comes to the equipment, we've got the shield. So this is one big old shield made out of pretty much 2 of the exact same sort of parts. Let's try to take it apart there, but this part is actually holding it together. This does have a little bit of an opening kind of gimmick to it, because it is usable on the actual shoulders of the Psycho Gundam as well as in its transformation. But let's get it lashed on as it is right now. There is a nice little joint down here. It's got multiple points of movement. It can move out like so, as well as rotate. So when it comes to attaching the shield, it's very simple. On the side of the arm, you've got this little flip out peg section and hole. You just pop the peg of the shield into that hole and it holds on absolutely perfectly. We've got tons of articulation on that little arm on the underside of it, so it means you're going to get this into the exact pose that you want, and it does look incredible when attached to the Mark II. The shield can also be attached on as additional shoulder armor. In order to do that, you just detach the shield like so, remove this little section that's holding it all together, pop the 2 halves in half like so, remove these 2 tiny bits here which were for holding the 2 parts of the shield together, and now you've kind of unlocked the articulation that's in here, which allows this section to move up and down. So you move that all the way around to the other side like so. Up in the shoulders, you've got these little flip out sections like so, and then you just pop on the shield segments onto the shoulders. You do it on one side, then onto the other, and this is what it looks like with those attached. This is a really cool look. It almost gives it an almost samurai-esque vibe, and that is cool. One bit of a down point I will mention about these is there always seems to be an open seam whenever these are just, well, existing. So that is all of the time. So that is a little bit annoying. That might be something you might want to seal permanently, but the kind of pressure that's put on it where it's put on it tends to make it kind of just pop open. So even if you did seal it, it might just pop anyway. It is noticeable, definitely. So next up in here, we've got the reflector bits. Now these can be put together in a combination of ways. So we've got the widespread top with the active bottom, and the not active bottom with the pointy tip head kind of bit. So you have the option, this one right here is straight up for storage on the actual unit. This one is for flying around doing what the reflector bits do. And you also have the option to combine them in this particular form as well if you want to. But just for the sake of keeping it simple, I'm just going to go with these ones for the big display and the storage versions. So while out of the actual Psycho Gundam Mark II, these can be displayed in 2 ways. That is with the closed funnel section on the end, or with the open funnel section like I have right here. Then you just pop them onto the included action bases. Now you can split these into 4, so you can have 4 independently, or just do what I've done right here, which is copy what's in the manual, and you build up 2 big old stems, pop all the, well, it's not actually all of them, it's 8 out of the 10 of them flying in the air just like so, either side of the Psycho Gundam Mark II. It looks pretty cool. These are a little bit wiggly, I will mention these bases, but you can actually lock them onto the other bigger included base, so they'd be a little bit more secure if you wanted to do that. Overall though, looking pretty nice. So next up, we do have the storage option in here. So for the stored versions of these can be attached into the backpack. The backpack slides open just like so. You can attach in 2 of these onto the ball joints inside like this and this. These store away quite neatly, but I will mention you can only store 4 of them, 2 per backpack bit. And the other, I'm not sure if it's 6 of them or whatever, you're just going to have to leave in the box. It slides closed like this, nice and neat. Fantastic. And the last accessory we have in here is this alternate head. Well, it's not an alternate head because you can't actually attach it on. This is more of the getaway car. In this particular unit, the pilot is in the head, so when it gets, trashed a bit, this is how it escapes. Now, it would be cool to actually have a version of this where the entire thing is trashed like we see in Double Zeta, or was that Zeta Gundam? It's in both, but I don't remember which one this is from. And there we go. So that is the color separation on the eyes there. That is without the stickers. That's what it looks like underneath. So I did not use the stickers on this head. So if you don't use the stickers on the standard head, the eyes will look like that. It's very nice, honestly. This is what it looks like. We've got some pipes, some damage, and overall a pretty cool alternate accessory in here. The damage on the side of the head looks absolutely phenomenal, and this is a very, very nice extra. So now moving on to the articulation. First up, the usual comment on the overall build. Now this does have a little bit of wiggle to it, as you can see in some aspects. The leg will sag a little bit as well over to the side if you do shake it. Now a lot of these are just really to do with the fact that this is a high grade build with a whole lot of bulk, but otherwise when it's standing there and all that stuff, it has no issues whatsoever holding up its accessories, all of that. We're still yet to see what it's like when it is fully transformed, but for the most part it will hold any pose you put it in, but there is a mild bit of bounce and sag in the legs. Anyway, usual test pose. So getting into the usual test pose, well, it was a short endeavor because it doesn't really move around overly too much down in the legs. So this is what we do get, and the biggest limitation is the feet. I notice this a lot when trying to pose it. They don't really kick up to the front or to the back at all, which does kind of limit a lot of ground poses with this particular kit. Considering the fact that it is so big and heavy, it is kind of relegated to the ground. There is an action base in here, this one right here, but that's more so for the transformed form, because even at its maximum extension, it's not going to hold it in the air. Overall though, it's nice in the arms, the legs just lack, especially in the knees and in the ankles. So when it comes to the breakdown of the full articulation on this, when it comes to the neck, it's quite limited. A little bit of up and down, not too much. Side to side is quite limited too, and it has a little bit of an arc to its movement. It's not a straight side to side. The shoulder armor segments right here can move up and down out of the way of the shoulders. Speaking of the actual shoulders, we've got forward and back movement inside of the torso for these, which is quite nice. The arms overall are very impressive. The shoulder armor has a moving flap on the side, and the shoulder in general can move up and out of the way of the arm. At the arm, we've got a full 360 rotation right here, moves the shoulder as well. Full upper bicep swivel. When it comes to the bend at the elbow, it's very nice with a nice little bit of an armor section that moves inside of the arm out of the way. A very, very nice bend. The hands are awesome too. Everything we've seen here before with all the finger articulation. We have a ball joint as well as a hinge at the wrist too, which gives you a little bit of flexion and extension. Overall, very nice. At the torso, there is no ab crunch to the front or back. We've got rotation here. If you feel like you're not getting enough, you need to raise up that little pointy bit at the back and you get a little bit more. When it comes to the front skirting armors, they move up and down just like so on a single peg. There is a little bit more to it, but it's part of the transformation. This is really it when it comes to articulation. Same on the side here, it's just up and down, but if you do extend them out, you can see there's a whole lot of stuff going on inside of them, especially, or should I say, again, for the transformation. A full paralyzed butt flap, so that doesn't move. When it comes to the legs, there's a fairly decent kick up to the front, a little bit blocked because of the big knee armor and the front skirting armor. If you actually angle the leg out a little bit to the side, you'll actually get a bit of a higher kick. There's not much to the back because of the paralyzed butt flap. We've got full rotation at the upper leg all of the way around. At the knee, it's a little bit on the limited side, but not too bad considering the size of the mobile armor in general. So you do have 2 points of movement, but not a whole lot of motion overall. Down at the ankles, this is quite limited. You only get movement out to the back, nothing up to the front, which I do find limits poses quite a bit. Side to side, a little bit on the limited too. Once again, jumping right on back to the test pose again, it's not too bad, it's just not incredible when it comes to articulation. Now, I will mention it's big, it's bulky, and there is a full transformation too, so overall, it's not the worst, just not the greatest. It really does come down to what you expect yourself from a mobile armor, and usually, you won't be expecting too much. On to the transformation. So finally now we've got the transformation, and transformation is, well, it's quite the transformation. The final form, the mobile armor mode, is this right here. It's essentially a flying triangle with a pair of wings attached to it. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely huge. It is not really like much else out there, I suppose, besides the standard Psycho Gundam. And unlike the transformation on the Psycho Gundam, which was quite simple, this is very, very intricate. A little bit difficult in some aspects, but you'll get used to it after a couple of goes. There are, well, a couple of parts that can feel like they untransform themselves when you're handling it, and a couple of kind of issues that I will mention. But anyway, as for that transformation. First off, you pull out this section with the double beam cannons in the chest. Underneath that, we've got a little bit of an unlocking mechanism. The entire chest unit slides out just like so, very seamlessly. You move it upwards and angle it up towards the head a little bit where it locks into position with two locking aspects. Next up is the head. You bring the V fin sections down out of the way like so. Bring up the big pointy hood section from around back, as well as opening up this little bit of a hatch. The head then recesses simply down into the body just by pressing it. I'll also mention there is a little bit of a slide on the back to bring this back up again. The hood section locks on over the head like so. The two shoulder panels lock to either side of that. Moving down now to the skirting unit, this all pulls forward and out. The skirting armors are on multiple arms underneath, so they do have multiple points of movement to get them up and out of the way and up in front of the chest. Something similar happens with the side skirting, so we do have a joint in here that kind of breaks apart into two individual arms to bring them down to the sides. Next up, you need to bring the legs together, push down on the entire unit so the legs recess up into the body a little bit. There's a really cool mechanism in here. The front vernier on the underside of the waist unit, if you pull this down, it unlocks the hips so you can slide the hips outwards. Push that vernier in again, it locks them in the out position. Next up, we've got two sliding armors in the front of the legs. These slide up like so. Now you need to lock the side skirtings onto the legs to keep everything in position. This works out easily and lets you know that you've got the legs at this point in the right position. Next up, down the feet, you can pull these down, which unlocks them. Inside of the shin armor, there is an extra vernier you need to swing out. The entire leg swings back just like so, and in typical Zeta Gundam flair, you bend the legs into an almost lightning bolt position up towards the front, like a, I don't know, super crouch? Around then at the back of the foot, just above the heel, we've got another mechanism that pulls outwards like so. You now bring the entire foot back and out, and that little bit that came out is a locking mechanism to lock the feet upwards. Then you push everything up and it all locks into position. Moving now up to the upper body, you pull the shoulders out just like so. The two little armor flaps on the front of the shoulders, these slide in towards the body, then pivot downwards. This unlocks the shoulders so the shoulder armors can actually swing towards the front. And now it's time to get the arms moved. You bend them at the elbow, pull the hands out, which unlocks the extra little bit of a joint inside of them. The hands tuck inwards and then in behind the front skirting armors. Next up, you slide the armor panels on the elbows back to reveal those holes, slide down the thrusters on the back near the reflector fin storage, and at this point you get the shield into the equation. What you do here is basically get it into the exact same position that they were when they're on the shoulders, pop back in the little joint sections, and now these are what lock the elbows into the waist, into the heels, so you've got a 3-point lock. Now this can be a little bit difficult to get. If you've everything lined up, it will fit in perfectly. If you don't, at this point, the model kit will let you know. You just need to readjust and it should pop on. Finally then, you move a little bit of a flap in the butt of this to make it usable with the action base, get the action base into the equation and pop it on. Yeah, and that right there is what it is like transform. Now I will mention two things that are a little bit strange. First off, the action base that Bandai supplies is a little bit on the anemic side. It doesn't really hold this too well, there's a lot of bounce, and it does feel like it is straining a little bit under this absolute unit. Bandai might need to rethink this particular action base. The other thing is, these shoulders fell off. Both of them popped at this point. Now I had this sort of issue as well on the high-grade Typhoeus Gundam Chimera. So these little sections right here, I do recommend gluing them or cementing them in position when you are actually building this, because they do pop, which will cause the whole shoulder to fall off while transforming it. Again, it happened on both shoulders. Besides that though, overall, this does look like it should. The transformation mechanics are ridiculously intricate considering this is a high-grade kit. So overall, if you like transforming kits or transforming models in general, this one you will love. However, if you don't like transforming, it is a little bit finicky. I did feel a couple of things click in the chest while doing other transformation bits, which, well, unaligned some aspects ever so slightly. So it is mildly finicky, not that finicky. Overall though, it's a very nice transformation to something that is essentially, well, a block. So whether or not all that effort was worth it is down to yourself. So anyway, that right there is it for the review of the Psycho Gundam Mark II, and all I can say is this is platinum tier and just so close to that Gundarium. Overall, this is an absolutely fantastic kit, and like no other, it's a definite need to build kit. Now, I've actually tossed up adding in another little bit of an award for kits that are must-build kits, even if they don't hit the Gundam tier mark, and this is one of them. So I'm just going to stick a picture of Amuro up in the corner right now and give it the new type award. I'll come up with a better image later on at some point, but that means a kit that cannot be missed. And this is one of them. Aesthetically, this is absolutely fantastic. This got the full 5 points. It is extreme when it comes to aesthetics. It looks fantastic, the colors are great, the proportions are perfect, and every little bit of color on this is color separated, bar a couple of little black aspects. Otherwise, this is absolute perfection. It looks great, it is great, and it is absolute Zeta Gundam eye candy. All the way up into the extreme zone as well with the full 5 points when it comes to articulation. And when I'm talking about the articulation on this kit, I'm not just going with what posing the actual robot itself can do. If you take all the various tiny little moving parts and gimmicks that make up the transformation on this, this is so satisfying. I've transformed it a couple of times now. Transforming it and untransforming it is a breeze. It feels fantastic and it's so nicely designed. Once you get used to it, it is so good. Besides those shoulders, but you need to cement them on building it. It poses quite good for a giant robot and transforms perfectly. It's so intricate, so perfect. When it comes to the accessories, these are absolutely perfect. I will also mention that 4 points out of 5 is perfection. 5 points is just for extreme, and this doesn't do anything when it comes to the accessories very extremely. The only down point here is the stand that's included is way too weak for the actual mobile armor mode. It just can't hold it up really. It starts to teeter left and right, and that's going to crack and break. They should have included something a little better, but overall, you get so much in here. Tons and tons of beams, you get that shield, the alternate destroyed version of the head is an absolutely fantastic touch, and there's a ton of options when it comes to the reflector bits, including the nice storage around in the backpack. Finally then, when it does come to the build on this is an absolutely perfect build. Again, the only real down point on this is the fact that the shoulders absolutely suck out of box and will pop after one transformation. So make sure to cement the shoulder mechanism, or at least the two parts that hold on the pivoting part of the shoulder during the build, and that will save you that issue. Besides that, there is a lot of nubs on this kit. You will have to clean up the purple plastic nubs up a lot, but besides that, it's a great build, it's a huge kit, it's intricate, and a very unique high grade. A giant high grade has never quite felt this premium. But yeah, that right there is it. It's a must-build kit, definitely. It's got a couple of down points, not too many. It's mainly pros all the way. It's fantastic. This video right here wouldn't have been possible without those absolutely awesome people over at HobbyLink Japan, so the link is down there in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, I cannot finish this video right here without thanking every single one of you guys for watching, and special thanks to those who support me on both the channel memberships as well as on Patreon, including Simon, Scotty Thomas, Abraxas, Orgy59061, Joe, Vanfon, and Caleb Engelhart.